Tonight, we're learning that the gunman was on law enforcement's radar for 3 hours, and the Secret Service designated Crooks a threat 10 minutes before Trump took the stage. Crooks first aroused suspicion at around 3 on Saturday when security saw him with a rangefinder passing through the metal detectors. Police say they had an eye on him until he disappeared. Crooks was later spotted for a second time, this time by a sniper looking up at the roof, observing the building that he scaled and shot from. This was radioed into the command center. At one point, a sniper saw Crooks sit down and start scrolling through his phone. And investigators believe he may have actually had 2 phones. More on that later. This is when Crooks looked so suspicious that a local sniper team took this picture of him an hour before he opened fire. All of this information was being sent to the Secret Service command team at the rally.
This picture right over here, I made mention of these little connecting structures between the 2 buildings and how the perpetrator scaled up a ladder at one of those spots, gaining access to the roof initially. The photos that were circulating were relatively low resolution, and what was being reported was that those ladders were essentially already there, they were affixed. Well, now we've got an update, and again, it's totally unbelievable. Apparently, the perpetrator brought that ladder and placed it there. Just bear with me for a second. So, supposedly, this was the ladder that he picked up at Home Depot, a 10-foot step ladder. The current report is that the perpetrator took his van to Home Depot. This right here is the perpetrator's van, by the way, that was recently seized by the FBI. So he took this van, drove to Home Depot, bought this 10-foot step ladder, and then again, bear with me, he then carried said ladder from Home Depot all the way to Butler Farm Show Incorporated, walking all the way through the forest more than a mile in distance, carrying a massive ladder, an AR-15, and a bunch of ammunition. My mind is completely blown. Essentially, you had a 20-year-old kid carrying a rifle and a giant ladder, and he was simply allowed to walk in, set up his gear, scan the perimeter, gain access to the top of the building. He was spotted multiple times, and he was able to do all of this without a care in the world. Can somebody please explain how that makes sense? How could a 20-year-old kid pull this off? One exhausted 20-year-old kid who supposedly walked over a mile with a giant freaking metal ladder. How on God's green earth did he manage to pull this off with the amount of law enforcement and Secret Service agents present during that day? Who made the calls here? We need answers to everything. James Comer recently subpoenaed Kim Cheadle, so that's of course a good thing, because we need thorough explanations and quick. We need to know exactly who made the calls. Who made the call to have all of these police officers and all of these Secret Service agents positioned on the complete other side of the perimeter when the clear and most obvious high priority threat was that factory building on Trump's right side? You know, again, the question that I keep asking myself is, why was that part of the venue not secured? Why was that building not completely surrounded by law enforcement and Secret Service agents? Take a look at this clip.
Hit it like you mean it.
Why were so many police officers on the opposite side of the fence and didn't even have access to the building? They had to bring a pickup truck to ram down the fence in order to gain access to the building side of the property. Who made the decision for the security perimeter and personnel layout? We need answers, because very simply, what we are seeing is unacceptable and of course totally unbelievable. It's either gross incompetence or malice and conspiracy. Kim Cheadle, Alejandro Mayorkas, Joe Biden, and of course the mainstream media at large, they don't want you asking any questions. Never question the official narrative. But having been exposed to everything we've seen over the last couple of days, how is it possible not to question everything? When absolutely nothing makes sense, when 2 + 2 is 5, you're left with no other choice but to question the official narrative. That's the rational thing to do right now. We're looking at a Swiss cheese story. There's all kinds of holes everywhere. The government better come in and patch up every single hole with very logical explanations, or we're going to continue to see a steady erosion in trust in the legal system. You know, if they come out and say that 5-degree angled sloped roofs are too dangerous for Secret Service agents to climb, that's not a legitimate or acceptable explanation. If they tell us that what happened was they implemented activated the Pac-Man perimeter strategy tactic, where you secure a perimeter in the shape of a Pac-Man. This little pizza-shaped cutout for the mouth right over here, placed perfectly right at the factory building. If they come out and tell us that that's the newest and latest and next-gen Secret Service presidential protection strategy, again, no one's gonna buy it. They need a legitimate explanation, and frankly, we need to know exactly who made these calls, who made the personnel positioning decisions. There better be a good explanation for every single little thing that happened that day. But honestly, I don't think they're gonna be able to do it, because how can you possibly justify or explain any of this? A 20-year-old walking around with a bulletproof vest, a rangefinder, a giant freaking ladder, multiple fully loaded magazines. Supposedly, he had over 100 rounds on him. How could they have let him through, and how did they spot him so early, and yet they took no action? But rather, the current report is that they spotted him acting suspiciously with a rangefinder and said, well, we need to keep an eye on this guy. Keep an eye on him. The moment they were suspicious, they should have detained him. They should have secured the area. How do you explain this level of incompetence? I simply don't know, but I guess we'll have to see. So far, the whole sloped roof argument isn't freaking cutting it. Anyways, that's